I wanted to do this video about my hereditary hemochromatosis and iron overload issues that I dealt with because this was part of the problem when I lost my voice for 8 years, and yeah, that really kind of sucked. And this was just only one of the problems. I had other factors that were contributing to that voice loss stuff, and I'll put the link in the description below this video for my video on how I lost my voice for 8 years if anybody wants to check that out. But I wanted to share this because this iron overload issue basically kills people all the time, but it's really hard to get diagnosed. Most doctors are going to miss this because there is no pharmaceutical solution for iron overload. You really have to kind of fix it with these kind of natural means that I'll explain in a minute. But I saw 23 different doctors and nobody caught it just because it's not really in their training. They kind of mention it in passing in their med school stuff, but it's not something that they're reminded of normally because there is no medication to fix it. So I had one out of these 23 doctors that looked at my blood work and was like, "Hey, do you eat a lot of spinach?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "Okay, just don't." And he was confused about that, and I'll explain that in a minute, but that's pretty much the only note that any doctor ever gave me, and it turns out that my iron was incredibly high and creating a lot of problems. So I want to make this video just so that you can understand what to look out for and what to watch for, and because if this is an issue for you, it's going to create health issues, and you won't fix those health issues until you can fix this problem. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So there are a variety of issues that can make iron levels go too high, but with me, it appears I had something called hereditary hemochromatosis. And this is a genetic issue that makes your body absorb way too much iron. So I ended up doing this test. It was one of those online tests where they do the tests at local, kind of laboratories and such, but you don't really have to have your doctor sign you up for it. And this was, I think, it was a cheek swab, if I remember correctly. And it just helps you understand, do you have the markers that'll give you a high chance of having this hereditary hemochromatosis issue? And it's something that seems to be very high with people that are of Northern European descent, and it seems like Scottish and Irish folks seem to have a very high prevalence of this, and I had both of those descents. So I was like, all right, I'm just picking the lottery here. And I found out I had this after I saw some blood work that showed that my iron levels were really high, and my iron saturation level was really high, and my total iron binding capacity was low. And those are usually the markers, along with very high ferritin, that show up when someone has an iron overload issue. And the ferritin is something that the body uses to kind of deal with some inflammation issues, kind of like it uses cholesterol. And I found out later that this is why a lot of young, healthy, otherwise males were having heart attacks and dying, was because their ferritin levels were so incredibly high because their iron levels were so high. So this is something that you really kind of want to know what's going on. So here's some of the common symptoms that can show up when iron is way too high. We have things like inflammation, fatigue, weakness, stomach pain, joint pain, and especially this thing called iron fist, where basically like the knuckles of your pointer and middle finger will really get painful. Like when you move them, it just feels like really tight and painful. And I was having that a lot. So that one really showed up for me. And even after I fixed the problem, if iron started to go a little bit higher, those joints would hurt again. Almost like I had this alarm like, hey, go do something about this because it seems like a problem is coming on. So that was one that showed up for me a lot. But also things like high liver enzymes, diabetes, loss of sex drive and erectile dysfunction. And here's one, how about heart failure? That's kind of a good symptom, that's kind of a symptom that something's going wrong. Yeah, heart failure. And another sign can be an orange or bronze tone to the skin or even a gray coloring. Now, what you really don't want to do is look at those symptoms and be like, oh, well, I'm really tired. I must have iron overload. I'm going to do everything I can to get all this iron out of my body. Because the reality is that much more people deal with iron levels being too low, which can also create fatigue and weakness and some of those problems. So you really don't want to take steps to get rid of iron in your body unless you know that your iron levels are high. So what you really have to do if you're dealing with a lot of those symptoms is you want to get an iron panel done. And iron panels are very easy to do. When your doctor is doing blood work, you can just request, I want an iron panel. And they usually don't charge you anything extra, but it does cause the lab to make that test done. So they've removed that from most blood work. Most people don't get iron panels in their blood work anymore just because the lab has removed that for a cost-effective situation. But you can just ask for it, and I like to have all my clients just ask for an iron panel. They're like, hey, I'm gonna get my blood work, should I ask for something? I'm like, yeah, look at your iron panel, just because it's great to rule that out as a problem. It's really rare. I've only seen it be a problem with a few clients in over a decade, but when it is a problem, you're not going to fix other problems until you correct that. So I like people just to kind of check it out. So when I found out that my iron levels were really high, I started to avoid some things. Like, you really want to avoid iron cookware because that can leach into the food and then put more iron into your body. I was avoiding things like spinach and all the things that had high iron in it. But what happens is most vegetables have what's called non-heme iron, and the iron levels can be high in those vegetables, but that type of non-heme iron is very difficult for us to absorb, and we'll absorb much less of that. So that wasn't the problematic iron. Iron levels in things like meat are much easier to absorb. So if someone has really high iron levels, they may need to restrict their meat, especially red meat consumption, until they get those levels under control. Now, I eat red meat every day now, and I'm fine with it now that I have things under control, but when things were really bad, I had to watch those things. It can also be a good idea to avoid raw fish or shellfish, and I was working in a oyster bar for like 8 years, eating oysters every day, so you can see how I really created some problems. So when I saw my blood work, my ferritin levels were off the charts. And most ranges are going to be from like 20 to like 300 is what you want to see. And mine was much higher than that. They weren't insane. Like you hear about people seeing like, oh yeah, my ferritin level was like 4,000. And I was still a walking human. It was not in that range, but it was well over the 300 level of the highest that you really want to see. So the thing that helped me really turn things around is I started getting weekly phlebotomy treatments. And this is similar to when you're donating blood. They just hook a needle in there and they just let the blood come out. And they pull a little bit more out in the phlebotomy treatment than they would if you were donating blood. And they also do it much more frequently. I think I was getting treatments every week, to where when you donate blood, you can only do that like every 56 days. So I was accelerating that treatment by letting the blood come out, and then the body uses the iron that it has stored in all these organs that are creating all this inflammation. It pulls that iron out to make more blood, and you start reducing the amount of iron in your system. So it took me a while to really get my numbers down into the human range. But once I got that down into a good range, I didn't have to continue the phlebotomy treatment. I could just continue by donating blood every few months, and I kept my levels in a great range. And one thing to keep in mind, especially when we're thinking about males and females with this problem, because both can have this problem, but with females, trouble won't usually show up till much later in life, because females are usually menstruating each month. So if a woman is menstruating, all through her life, she's kind of keeping those iron levels in a good level, even if she's absorbing way too much. So a male absorbs way too much iron, and it's just going to accumulate. So my iron levels have been accumulating since I was a kid, basically. But a woman that's menstruating won't see real trouble until that menstruation cycle stops, and then they could start accumulating iron. So these problems are much more common with men. Now, you do hear about other steps. Some people say turmeric can really restrict your ability to absorb iron, and that sometimes that can be beneficial to take turmeric if somebody has an iron overload issue. Some people say if you have this problem, you don't want to take a lot of vitamin C with your meals, because vitamin C has the ability to increase your ability to absorb iron, so you might need to take your vitamin C away from meals if this is a problem. But to figure out if this is a problem, you really want to get an iron panel to look at, is this a problem or not? And I've been able to keep my situation in a good range just by donating blood a few times a year. And most places will allow you to donate blood with hemochromatosis. There are some states that have a problem with it, but the reality is that most people understand that, oh, you're just giving somebody iron-rich blood, and when they've lost a lot of blood, a lot of times that is even more beneficial to them. So most people with this issue, once they get things under control, can keep it in a good range by just donating blood a few times a year. So again, now I'm able to eat shellfish, I'm able to eat red meat frequently, and it doesn't cause any trouble for me. I don't have to take any steps to be cautious now. I just try to donate blood a few times a year, and it seems to keep everything in a good level for me. If you want to learn more about the other troubles that were creating problems for me when I lost my voice for 8 years, jump over and watch my video on how I lost my voice for 8 years. So I hope this video finds some people that it'll help, and thanks for watching.